From ancient times, people knew that to stay alive, an organism had to eat. Some animals eat other animals, some eat plants. But plants are alive too, so what do plants eat? Let's think about the typical plant. We know that it has to grow in soil, and it needs to have a certain amount of water, and it seems to like sunlight. But what does it eat? How can we find out? Let's take a look at some of the scientists who tried to figure it out. In the 1600s, Belgian scientist Van Helmont did an experiment to answer the question, do plants eat dirt? He figured that if plants are eating dirt, then the mass of the dirt should decrease as the mass of the plant increases. He measured out the exact weight of some dry soil, then planted a willow branch in it and carefully watered it for 5 years. Then he took out the willow tree, which had grown a lot, dried out the soil, and waited again. Even though the plant had gained 164 pounds, the soil only lost about 1/8 of a pound. His conclusion then was that if plants don't eat dirt, they must be made up almost entirely of water. Could it be true that plants only need to drink water? Most people didn't believe that. In 1753, Swiss naturalist Charles Bonnet studied plants that were submerged in water. He noticed that air bubbles formed on the plant when it was in sunlight. That meant that the plants were breathing out air. Maybe, like us, they breathe in air too. Do they use air the same way we do? 10 years later, another scientist named Joseph Priestley was studying air. He knew that a candle in a jar would burn out because it used up something in the air that was essential for combustion. He called the used up air injured air. He found that the same thing would happen to a mouse in a jar. After a while, it would pass out because it had injured the air. However, a small plant in the jar would revive the mouse or keep the fire burning longer, so long as the plant was in sunlight. This showed that whatever it was in the air that was needed for fire and for animals was produced by the plant. This thing was later named oxygen. But you can't make something without using something else up. The plant must be using up something else in the air. That thing was called carbon dioxide. Wait, so does that mean plants eat air? Theodore de Saussure finally put it all together in the early 1800s. His careful experiments proved that the carbon dioxide plants were breathing in was really the main source of the increased mass of growing plants. He was the first to correctly sum up the process of photosynthesis. Plants take in carbon dioxide and water, then using the energy of sunlight, they turn it into glucose and oxygen. How amazing is that? They use the power of sunlight to take carbon from the air and water from the ground and turn it into food for themselves. Then they eat it, but that's another story.